Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. I'm Jamie. That's Heath. Joining us now, it's Adam Mazer. We're going to take a look at our wide receiver rankings for 2022. That's right. We're already looking ahead. Obviously, we're not going to leave you hanging in Week 18. We're going to have you covered with everything you still need. Start, sits. That's all coming up later this week. But we want to give you a position preview each day of some of the things you could be looking forward to this offseason. Certainly, we're going to get prepared for the 2022 campaign as soon as Week 18 wraps up. So let's show you our wide receiver rankings for next season. This is the top 10 in PPR. This is going to change 1 billion and one times between now and August. But this is what we think of the receiver list following the 2021 campaign, at least through 17 weeks. So here's Heath's top 10 list. Make sure you study it, remember it, take a look. There's a couple of differences, certainly at the bottom with DK Metcalf and DeAndre Hopkins, but Davonte Adams, number 1, Cooper Kupp, number 2. That's going to be a staple for all of us, at least as of right now. Jamar Chase, number 3 as well for Heath. Will be the same thing for Adam as we show you Adam's top 10 list of wide receivers for 2022. Same guys at the top with the top 3. He has Tyreek Hill 4. Heath, you saw, has him at 5. The difference for Adam is a big one at number 7, Chris Godwin. We'll talk about that coming up in a second, but some similar names, obviously just a little bit of a different order, and then CeeDee Lamb at the bottom there for Adam at number 10. For me, my top 10 list, no Chris Godwin, no DK Metcalf, no DeAndre Hopkins. I have Deonte Johnson as the one difference for me, but as you see, one other change would be Justin Jefferson at number 3 as opposed to Jamar Chase. So that will be a fun topic of discussion, which we'll get to in a second. Let's talk about some of these players listed here. So Davonte Adams, we have number 1. He is not going to be number 1 for the 2021 season. Cooper Kupp is going to finish with that designation and may set more records depending on what happens in Week 18 against the 49ers. So, Heath, I'll start with you, Adam. You can follow. Why Davonte Adams over Cooper Kupp?
Just because right now I'm projecting it's going to be him and Aaron Rodgers back in Green Bay, and Adams has given us this level of production for multiple years. Cooper Kupp's done it 1 year. They're basically the same age, so it's hard for me to believe that Kupp's breakout is going to lead to this new level of production where he just averages 26 fantasy points a year every year. So I'm going to stick with the consistency of Adams.
Adam, same question to you.
Yeah, it's the same answer. He has now scored 30 PPR fantasy points or more in 4 of his last 6 games, Davonte Adams. He's been incredible. He's still the same guy. And I just trust him to repeat this type of performance more than I trust Cooper Kupp, who's really having a sort of out-of-nowhere incredible season. Always a very good wide receiver, but this is ridiculous. So I just think Adams has a better chance of being number 1 next year.
So let me ask you this question, Adam. If there is no Davonte Adams paired with Aaron Rodgers, and let's just say he goes to another team that has a good quarterback, just not a great quarterback, are we putting Cooper Kupp number 1?
I put Cooper Kupp number 1. Quite honestly, I wanted to put Jamar Chase ahead of Cooper Kupp, maybe even Hill and Jefferson. I see a real regression coming from Cooper Kupp. I still have to make sense of everything that happened with him. He had 1 game all season with fewer than 92 yards. You compare that to Michael Thomas a few years ago. I think Thomas had 5 or 6. You compare that to Calvin Johnson, the year he set the receiving record. He had 5 or 6 games with fewer than 92 yards. It's happened 1 time for Cooper Kupp. So this is a crazy year. I just don't believe he's going to be able to do this again, but he would be ahead of Davonte Adams, and you see I have him 2, so right now I'd say he'd be 1, but I have a feeling that by the time we get closer to draft season, he's going to be more like wide receiver 5, but Adams would not be number 1 if he did not have Aaron Rodgers with him.
I guess the counter to Cooper Kupp doing this again is first season with Matthew Stafford, and so what would we have said if Davonte Adams' first breakout season if he had a different quarterback, or Michael Thomas switching quarterbacks, the conversation that we had going into this season about him, or even, last season coming off the record-breaking campaign. But Matthew Stafford just might have unleashed him, and those two guys will be together next year. So lots to like about Cooper Kupp. So if, in fact, we don't have Davonte Adams, Cooper Kupp could be the first receiver off the board, might be the number 1 overall pick in PPR if people go that route, avoiding running backs. Talk about Jamar Chase versus Justin Jefferson. I'll defend the Jefferson side of things, but Heath, I'll give you the first word. Why Chase over Jefferson? And last year, this time, Jefferson was Chase.
Right. I mean, for me, it's that they played together in college a couple of years ago, and Jamar Chase was better than Justin Jefferson then. And then Jamar Chase as a rookie was better than Justin Jefferson as a rookie. And then he's got Joe Burrow, who I think probably either stays the same or keeps getting better, and we don't know who Jefferson's quarterback's going to be.
Adam?
It's basically the same exact thing. It would be very, very costly for them to move on from Kirk Cousins. I think it's a $45 million cap hit. So they might have to extend him, or they might try to trade him. So I think it will be Cousins. But I just think Jefferson has the potential to be the best wide receiver. Well, they both do. But Chase now, I think, has the potential to be even better than Justin Jefferson. I mean, that speed is just unbelievable. And, yeah, look, it's a really close call. They're both going to get a ton of targets, probably more for Jefferson. but I just like the talent of Ja'Marr Chase a little bit better. Best wide receiver prospect since Julio Jones, according to so many people. Backed it up as a rookie, and bigger things in store as a sophomore.
So, in fairness of full disclosure, I did this mostly for a talking point on the show. I will probably have Ja'Marr Chase ranked over Justin Jefferson, but to defend Justin Jefferson, I do think Kirk Cousins will be back. I also wonder if Adam Thielen will be back, because I think if we don't have Thielen and we have somebody like a KJ Osborne or somebody that's not as significant, the targets will get even slanted more in his direction. We're probably going to have a coaching change. We're probably going to have an offensive coordinator change. One of the two will certainly happen in Minnesota. But I think the one thing that they realized midway through the season was feature Justin Jefferson a little bit more, and you look at his numbers in the second half of the season, how they popped. It reminded us more of what the second half of the season of his rookie campaign looked like. So I do think there's a chance for Jefferson to still be better, because he doesn't have a T. Higgins and a Tyler Boyd on his side to draw some of those targets away. Quarterback is definitely better, as you said, in Joe Burrow, but this is going to be another one of those situations. We're going to talk about this a lot. It might be better to have the later pick to get the similar type of talent and maybe similar type of production. So some of these things tend to benefit you depending on when you're drafting if you want one of these two guys, because they're probably going to be late first-round picks in the majority of leagues. All right, one guy that we were talking about as a breakout receiver in 2021, it didn't materialize mostly because of injury, was A.J. Brown. We loved him coming into this year. He's most likely going to be paired with Ryan Tannehill. He's probably going to have a different guy on the other side of him in terms of Julio Jones, because I doubt that they're going to have only Julio Jones as the number 2 receiver there. So, Adam, I'll start with you. Are we too low on A.J. Brown, who is not in our top 6 rankings?
I don't think so, not in a full PPR league, but I am more or less willing to forgive him for a down season. He had 8 games out of 12 with fewer than 50 receiving yards, but in 4 of those 8 games, he played fewer than 70% of the snaps. He only played fewer than 70% of the snaps one time in 2020. Injuries really held him back, but this is still a team that's going to be very, very run heavy. He's going to be awesome. I just don't think he can rack up the catches to be a top 5 PPR wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of did this going into 2020. We said he could be this because look what he did in the second half of the season. And then last year he said, yeah, but he was injured early in the year, and so he could be this again. And I think I'm just going to make him prove that he's a top 5 wide receiver before I rank him there again.
Yep, it'd be fun to see him finally live up to some of these expectations, because he's got such superstar ability, even going back to what he did in Week 16 for the Titans against the 49ers in his first game back. Shows you the type of upside that he does have when he's in a good matchup and when Ryan Tannehill's looking for him. All right, so I said this as we were going through the list. There's kind of an outlier for all of us. And so for Heath, you actually have 2 of them, but we'll talk about DK Metcalf. Adam, you have Chris Godwin, who's coming off of the ACL tear, obviously. For me, I have Deonte Johnson, who's going to have a different quarterback because Ben Roethlisberger is retiring. So let's talk about each of these guys quickly. So give me your take on DK Metcalf for next year. Again, could have a different quarterback.
It's totally just betting on talent. And I have a hope. Like, he might have a different quarterback. I think he also might have a different coaching staff, and maybe they're going to be a little bit more of a creative, pass-heavy offense. I think there's a chance that if Russell Wilson's gone, also Tyler Lockett's gone, and DK is a true alpha wide receiver, and I just expect a bounce back in terms of talent from him.
Adam, Godwin.
Here's an Azer stat for you on Chris Godwin. Obviously, we have to see how the recovery goes, but you remove the game in which he tore his ACL. He played 8 games without Antonio Brown. His 16-game pace in those 8 games, 128 catches, 1,438 yards, 6 touchdowns on 10 targets per game. If it's just Godwin and Evans next year and no significant addition, he is going to get so many targets and so many catches, and he's going to be awesome.
What if he's not in Tampa Bay, though, because he's a free agent?
I would think they're not going to have Antonio Brown next year. I would think re-signing Chris Godwin would be a big priority for them.
Hopefully that's the case. We would love to see him stay with Tom Brady as long as Brady is back with the Bucs, but hopefully he's 100% and in the right system, and I think I agree with you. If he is in that scenario, he will be in my top 10 as well. Deonte Johnson, will find out who he's going to be playing with at the quarterback position, and so as you see, there's questions with all of these guys, which is why they're not in the top 8 or 9. But what we've seen from Deonte Johnson the last 2 seasons has been fantastic. Again, a lot of that is predicated on who the quarterback is there for the Steelers. But I'm hopeful, like you said, Heath, that they're going to figure it out and get the right guy in place for Seattle, for you, for Pittsburgh, for me. I think Deonte Johnson's talent has proven that he can play a downfield threat. He's obviously a guy that can play in the intermediary and short yardage game, but a guy that can just rack up targets and hopefully continue to be a very productive wide receiver with whoever is throwing him the ball. So we're going to have a lot of fun conversations about the receiver position in the course of the next few months, but this is the first preview of our top 10 guys for the upcoming season.